Welcome to the Copper State Marching Podcast, sponsored by the Arizona Marching Band Association, AZMBA. My name is Martin Hebda, AZMBA Director of Education and Outreach.
And I'm Aaron Vogel. The AZMBA Copper State Podcast was created to bring together our Arizona marching band community and to connect, educate, and entertain those involved in this wonderful activity.
Aaron, it's good to see you again. We're about 3 episodes in, and I've learned that we've reached several listeners just even outside of Arizona. I've heard that we're reaching people in Las Vegas, Denver, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Toronto, even Singapore, Moscow, and Brazil.
Ooh, Argentina. Okay. Well, maybe we'll need to take a little flight down to Brazil, and then we can do the podcast on location with our one Brazilian listener.
Before we get started on today's podcast, we would like to do a quick shout out to all of our sponsors. AZMBA would like to thank our sponsors: Arizona Cardinals Football Club, The Band Shop, Bravgo Media, Encore Gifts, Forte Athletics, Instrumental Music Center, Mac Pack, Milano's Music, Music Celebrations International, Music for All, Pieces of Flair, Scoreboard Fundraising, Show Dots, Tide Dry Cleaners, and Yamaha. Thank you for supporting AZMBA.
And we're going to be continuing the Director's Cut series, leading the design process as a director. So very much excited about our next podcast. Today we have on Richard Saucedo, the longtime band director at Carmel High School in Carmel, Indiana, now retired, and the team leader for the BOA judging community. Richard, thanks so much for being on the call.
Great to see you, and gentlemen, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great. We're so excited to have you. We think a lot of folks will tune into this particular episode because of your background. For folks that might not know as much about you, can you just tell us a little bit about your background, your experience, in particular in terms of design?
Sure. I've been really fortunate to have some great mentors over the years to work with, but pretty much starting in high school, I started getting involved with writing the musical aspect for marching band, just because my director, Don Hoffman at Anderson High School in Indiana, was an arranger, and he, was my hero, and he taught me a lot about starting to put things on paper. Knew that it was something that I wanted to aspire to be, an arranger and a writer. So he actually let me do some work for the band. In my senior year, I actually did an arrangement that the marching band did on one of our Friday night football games. So that was, and I'm sure it was an arrangement that I'd never want to hear again, or anyone would never want to hear again. But for me, at that moment, it was one of the most exciting moments I'd ever had in my life. And when I heard a group performing one of my pieces, I'm like, that's something I want to do. So that's kind of been the early motivation of all that. I had some great teachers as I was growing up, but as I started teaching, I started writing for the groups where I was teaching. And of course, I was at Carmel High School for 31 years and wrote for them every year. And I'm still writing for Carmel High School, still their arranger, and for a number of other schools in the area here. So it's something that I just really love doing. I got into the drum corps thing a little bit, was very fortunate to work with the Cavaliers back in the early 2000s, worked with an amazing team of designers, Michael Gaines, Brett Kuhn, Scott Coder, just so many great people, Eric Johnson, and just all kinds of great people. And we were able to win, I think it was 5 DCI championships back then. But that was because we had a team that was willing to leave their egos at the door and think about what's best for the kids. And so I learned a ton, especially during that time. And now I'm still doing some writing for drum corps, working a little bit with the Blue Devils, and doing some writing for the Academy in Arizona. It's my first year actually doing it for them, so looking forward to that. And still writing for a lot of groups around the country, so still enjoying it and still learning, that's for sure.
That's amazing. We're so excited to have you here with the Academy, our local drum corps. What can you explain a little bit more about your role with the Academy this year?
Yeah, so Josh T, their director, is a good friend and I used to write for his group when he was a band director in Arizona. And when he called and asked if I'd be interested, I was like, it's really funny because after I was done with Cavaliers back in the early 2000s, I told myself I'd never get involved with drum corps again. And then I ended up doing some work for Blue Stars and for some different drum corps. And when the Blue Devils called, I was like, here we go. But then there's so many great people out there, and even at my old age, I still love learning. And so every time I go out and to Blue Devils or I go out to Arizona, I've been out to one of their camps already, and I'm learning. I'm learning now from the young folks. They're teaching me. So as long as I keep learning, I keep doing it, and I'm having a great time. I'm just basically the brass arranger for the academy. I'm helping to put the overall design together. They're using my experience a little bit, but I'm also learning from them. A lot of great designers on that team as well. So looking forward to working with them this coming season.
Well, and it's going to be a great season too. I've been able to hear just a little bit of snippets from their camps, and I'm excited for that where that's going to go. And the Cavalier time that you had are some of my favorite shows in DCI as well. So
I
those
appreciate that. Thank you.
before you came on, Aaron and I were talking about some of your concert pieces, and there are just so many. We were talking about some of our favorites, and Aaron, you had just maybe a quick story about your favorite piece.
Yeah, well, a number. I think every band director on this call has played at least one of your songs, probably multiple. And so we definitely played multiple. We've done Triumph and Fanfare a
Oh,
number of
good.
times. I've done that with the Honor Band, and I
Mhm.
remember you telling me last fall that that was your first piece. Is that
It
right?
was. It was my very, very first piece. I was doing nothing but marching band arrangements for Hal Leonard for a long time, and Mike Sweeney came to me and said, "Hey, why don't you try take a stab at concert band?" And so as you know, that piece, Trumpet Fanfare, sounds a lot like a marching band piece because I was making that transition. But it's been such a joy and blessing in my life. Just got back from, I think, over the last 8 or 10 weeks, I've done like 6 or 7 honor bands. I've done all state bands. So I just feel very, very lucky that people are buying music. And I still go back to my high school band director, Don Hoppin, and I have to thank him for getting me started. Because if it hadn't been for him, I wouldn't be enjoying the things I am right now.
Yeah, that's great. And I wanted to tell you one other story too, which is that at the school where I was here in Arizona, Mountain Ridge,
Mhm.
the group plays a concert for the high school commencement for graduation, which happens to be in the Cardinal Stadium or was when I was there. And so every year we played a number of just the best tunes on a repeat. And Flight of the Thunderbird, which was written
Oh,
for my
cool.
college roommate Jeff Bittner in
That's
Mahwah.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was a clarinet player, is a clarinet player, and we played that one on repeat. So every spring for graduation, there it was, Flight of the Thunderbird, and it worked great.
Well, that's it's so great to hear those things, and I keep my fingers crossed. Still have commissions being asked from me all the way to 2030. So I'm hoping I can stay alive long enough to do all those and finish those up. But yeah, I still love writing and I still love learning. And by the time I am off this planet, I do hope to have another symphony out and hopefully an orchestral symphony out as well. So I still have lots I want to do, but just got to find the time to do it.
One of my go-tos for my freshman band is Ukrainian Bell Carol that
Oh,
you've done,
cool.
which is it's just really for the time of year, it's just perfect for us. And another favorite of mine is American Barn Dance. I just
Oh, yeah.
the vibe and the feel for that one is one of my favorites as
Well,
well.
that piece represents my love for John Williams as a composer and for Aaron Copland,
Oh yeah.
because I based the feel of both of the slower movement is based off of what something like a John Williams would do. And John Williams and I worked for the same publishing company at Hal Leonard for a long time, and then of course Aaron Copland. I grew up at Indiana University listening to Aaron Copland's and studying his music. So they were always been two of my favorites and two of the people that really inspired me to learn to write. So that's kind of my tribute to both of those composers.
Very nice. So as we get into our topic, and we're talking about, the creating of the marching band show, kind of the first thought that I have is, do you have a starting place? When we're working on getting a new show together, tend to think more theme, music? Do you think about, the students' strengths? Like, what are some of the things that go through your brain when you're, as a band director, or just trying to figure out what do I want to do for this coming year?
Well, it's really changed over the years, to be honest. When I started teaching, and I first started, especially my first few years at Carmel, I made a lot of mistakes because I wanted to, like so many directors, I kind of made my choices by my ego instead of what was best for the kids. And so we played some pretty unrealistic things. I mean, I had a lot of talented kids at Carmel, but we played a few things that were kind of off the charts a bit in terms of difficulty. So we struggled at times doing that, and the kids usually came through pretty well. But I always wanted to come up with the next coolest thing, which is what all designers want to do. But nowadays, when I'm working with different groups, I always want those directors, and I encourage those directors to think about what's best for their program, what's going to excite their kids, what's going to, especially at the end of the season after finishing this program that we put together, what's going to get the kids to say, "Hey, I can't wait to come back and do this again." That's kind of what I look at now instead of just what can we do to be competitive? What can we do to be the next coolest thing or write the next coolest arrangement? Obviously, we still want to be very creative and we want to try to be different. We want to try every group I write for, I want to try to set them up for success in a different way. But more and more, it really is about setting your kids up for success, setting your students up for success so that they love coming to rehearsal. They love the music they're playing. They love putting it on the field. And at the end of the year, they feel really excited over what they've done and fired up to come back and do it again. So that's kind of what I look at more than anything. And when I talk with people about their designs, I always ask them to think about what's going to set their kids up for success and also bring them back the following year.
So the design is really like a recruitment and retention strategy.
Absolutely. More than ever right now, kids have so many things they can do. And especially with all the new things that are going on in our society and things that are being taught in schools, opportunities for kids, they're going to go where they get goosebumps, and we want to make sure that they get goosebumps in the performing arts areas and in the band areas, choir, orchestra areas. So I think the design is the marching band design is a place where a lot of kids still get goosebumps. And so that to me is more important than anything.
Well, talk us through a bit about kind of behind the curtain on that. So what would be your ideal process when you are Carmel or when you're writing now for different programs, high school bands across the country? What's your ideal design timeline? Who's in the room? How does that process work?
Well, the groups that I write for right now, just total transparency here, the groups that I write for are all very competitive groups. Most of them, I think all of them, actually, if they don't compete at Bands of America nationals, they're about to in one way or another. So I'm always looking at ways that can help them be successful in that arena. And since I am one of the chief judges, I can help in that area, just reminding them to really look at the score sheets, those kind of things. But as we put together a show, we want to put together something that's realistic, still challenging for their students. But we want to put together a show that is going to be clear, that's going to make sense the first time that you see it and hear it. And so the music part, I still believe that you start with the music. I'm never opposed to a visual idea. And even back in the early 2000s, when Michael Gaines had a great visual idea, we had no problem trying to come up with music that would fit to that visual idea as long as the two match each other well. But then it's a matter of taking the music and making sure that we have a great way of then putting that on the field visually so that we can enhance the music that way. And so all the elements, whether it's the guard work, whether it's the choreography, whether it's the staging, whatever we do, so it all works together to create some wonderful moments of effect, which could be moments that are big and powerful. But what a lot of folks forget is some of the very coolest moments of effect are those that make the audience lean in a little bit and have to listen. and have to really search to see, what are they? Wow, they're really playing softly. What am I supposed to be listening for right now? And so it's variety. And I just finished judging this last weekend for some of the winter groups, some of the winter win groups, and we're still talking about the same things. Is there enough variety of design in the show? Are there enough variety? Is there enough variety of orchestration? Is there enough variety of visual demands relative to the music that's written for the show? So you're kind of looking at it overall, and what we want to do. The overall goal, I think, is for us to put on paper the best possible show we can before it goes to the students. And what we tend to do, or what I tend to see a lot of times when I do clinics or when people ask me to look over their shows, is I see that folks don't always set up their kids for success before they give them the music or before they give them the drill. So they'll put things on the field or they'll hand music out, and then they have to go back and make adjustments because of things that don't work. So I'm always encouraging directors to think way ahead of the students they have, the realistic, the things that they can really do, the things that may be too much for them. They have to look at the amount of time they have to rehearse. For example, if you're in Texas, you have a limited amount of time, to rehearse. So you have to be super organized. And there are other states too, where and there are other directors that good for them will only allow so much time for the marching band because they want to have time for their concert band and everything else. So you have to be pretty organized, and that's one of the things that I really preach.
When a group comes to you and they ask, "Oh, hey, we would like you to arrange or work with our group," do you have a couple of just like initial questions that you ask just to kind of get a sense of what kind of arrangements you're going to be doing?
Yeah, I always ask for videos. So I'll do, before I'll agree to write for anyone, I'll always watch videos, unless it's a group that I've already seen quite a bit. And a lot of times that's the case. So I don't have to watch videos, but there have been cases recently where it's been groups, excuse me, I'm not that familiar with. So I'll watch videos and I'll know pretty much right away if I think I'll be a good fit for them. And if I don't think I'll be a good fit, I'll just be honest with them, up front. I try to become as familiar as possible. I ask everyone for an instrumentation list besides seeing what they've done in the past. For example, I'll say with your flute section, give me a range of talent level in the flute section. Do we have soloists that can be great above the staff or technically? And then what's the average level of your flute players? And that one, what would be maybe your weaker flute levels? What would be the most difficult we want to write for them? Because in some cases, we'll want to write an A part and then possibly a B part. And
Mhm.
we even do that with the drum corps too, with even the best drum corps. They do the same thing because there are some folks that can handle certain amounts of talent better than others, even though they're all good players. So you just want to make sure that, or I want to make sure that I understand each section, what I'm writing for, what the strengths are. If they have a great alto sax soloist, we want to take advantage of that. If they have a great front ensemble and great mallet players, we definitely want to take advantage of that. If they have a great battery percussion section, which so many groups do now because of the winter percussion activity, we want to take advantage of that. And even if folks say, our color guard is one of our strengths, then we have to talk about music that will set up the color guard for success and staging and all those things. So it's a huge process and takes a long time. And the folks that are the most successful are the folks that are willing to take the time. But yeah, I want to know every detail that I can about the groups, and I ask for every detail.
Do you find you do a lot of edits and reworking before they even give that first draft to the students, like when you work with the percussion side of things, or and actually another question on that is, do you find yourself writing a lot of the mallet book as well?
What I do is I always want to think holistically, and so I always write a sketch as I'm writing the wind book. And I'm a percussionist where I know just enough to be dangerous. So what I'll do is I'll write sketch battery parts when I feel they're important because I want the battery designer to know what I'm thinking, and I want to make sure that that fits within the Win book. And then same thing with mallets. I'll write mallet cues or mallet parts actually, and then ask their arrangers to go back and make them right for their kids, etc. But when I send an arrangement to any of my groups, there's always a complete idea in terms of winds, front ensemble, battery, and sometimes even electronics, depending on how important it is in their show. And by doing that, a lot of times we save the time of having to edit and rewrite. Because if something, they usually can tell right away if it's not what they want or if it doesn't work. And so we usually immediately have dialogue and they'll say, well, can you look at this section right away? So if I make a change, it usually happens right away. And very rarely will someone come back to me. Not that it doesn't happen, but very rarely will someone come back to me a month later, or 2 or 3 weeks before their first show and say we need to change something. We try to. I'm really big on let's get things right early, so the kids don't have to go through changes when they already have the show on the field.
Yeah, since you're doing so many different groups, are they all more or less on the same timeline? So their openers are more or less delivered around this time, and
Yeah,
tell us about
yeah.
that.
I'm working on everyone's openers right now and hoping to have those all finished here in the next couple of weeks. Then we'll get to work on everyone's second tunes. But they stay on me, and I tell them to because
Uh-huh.
I travel a lot. I'm pretty busy with other things too. So I just tell them, I said, just, if I'm starting to get behind, just get on me. And I'm trying my very, very best to stay on top of things. And the thing is, too, is I love doing it. So if I ever get behind, it's not because I want to be behind or I'm being lazy. It's usually just because I can't keep up sometimes with some of the things that are going on. I'm on planes a lot. Like I said, I do a lot of guest conducting, do a lot of clinics. Um, so sometimes I get behind, but I never want to get anyone into trouble or get anyone where they're behind enough that it hurts their group.
What's your typical end date? So the final marching band closer, final draft is usually by when?
Well, for the bands I write for, they would like their show to be done about 2 or 3 weeks after Grand Nationals for the next year, so that they have the entire year, But obviously, that's not very realistic, and I'm joking, kind of. And any of them that I write for that are watching this are going to be laughing right now. Um, but I would like to have. I'll use Carmel as an example. If I don't have everything to them by the end of April or any of my groups by the end of April, beginning of May, that's a concern,
Mhm.
because they need so much time to get it to their drill designers. They need time to get it to their percussion arrangers, to the folks that put together the electronic piece of things. It's such a long project. And if they're going to start teaching kids in June or July or something like that, they have to have their openers usually no later. Like I sent out a couple openers even in February this last month to some people to make sure they can get going on it. And I'll try to have all my openers done by middle of March at the latest.
You had mentioned that just over the course of your career at Carmel, your kind of focus in how you designed a show and worked a show had shifted and changed. What are some of the things that you might find you would tell a young director just to kind of be aware for, or that they should keep in mind as they're working on their process?
One of the things that, well, there's a couple of things. There's more than a couple of things, actually. But the first thing would be to make sure when you're putting your show together as a young director, we all want to make our mark in terms of knowing what we're doing, especially as young directors. We want to be noticed. We want to be, we want our kids to feel like they're legitimate in the competitive world and all those things. And so sometimes we'll overdo things as young directors. And we'll think more about what our judge is going to think instead of what's best for my program. And so when you're starting a program, especially if you're at a small program that maybe hasn't done a lot of competitive work, go easy. And I'll use a probably one of the best examples that I can think of is my good friend Jay Webb, who went to Avon and started Avon with a very simple program his first year. And it was a program that all the kids just loved. They had a great time, and he didn't care how competitive they were or whatever. But look at what they built at Avon over the years, just by him starting the right way there. And of course, Matt and all the folks there have continued that great tradition that he started there. But I think you have to put something on the field that your kids are going to love and that they're going to enjoy doing. So they're like, hey, this is cool. This is fun. This is worth the work. And wow, I can't wait to see what we're going to do next year. So it has to be realistic. And something that I would also ask young directors to think about is your principal has to feel good about it. At a Friday night ball game or whenever your team performs and you do that show on the field, your audience needs to love the band. Even if you only have 20 in your band, you got to figure out a way to get your audience to love that band. And you may have to adjust your music choices to things you wouldn't obviously always do to make sure that your audience loves it, that your principal loves it, that your community loves it. So you start getting support for your group. And then from that point, then you can start going a little bit more into what works competitively. But I think even after you get into the competitive realm, even now, I think the Carmel directors, for example, when we put a show together for Carmel, they're not just thinking about being competitive. They're pretty comfortable that they're going to be competitive. I mean, they've been either first, second, or third at nationals over the last, I don't know, 10 years or whatever. So I don't think they worry about that so much anymore as they do what's going to be the next best thing for the Carmel program. And also, what I think is really cool is they think about what's going to be the next best thing for the activity. What's going to move the activity forward, which is another reason I really like working with Blue Devils because the Blue Devils do the same thing. They take chances too, and sometimes they win, sometimes they don't, and they really don't care. What they care about is trying to move the activity forward. And that's part of what I love the most, I think, about writing for groups like Carmel, Brownsburg, some of the other groups that I write for in the area, as well as some of the other groups around the country. They're all trying to think about how do we move the activity forward. And that's what makes it very exciting for me still, even after doing it for so many years.
As you were, going through all of your, programs that you've written for, obviously all the programs at Carmel, the Cavaliers, and now with the drum corps with the Blue Devils in the Academy, is there one particular project that you're really, really proud of where you can say, if someone's never even seen a Richard Saucedo show, drum corps or band, hey, check out this one on YouTube. This is the one you got to check out.
It's funny. I would say, and I'm terrible at remembering the years. I make fun of my friends I'll immediately name a show and they'll say, oh, this year, and they place this high. And I can't remember any of that stuff. So, but one of the things that I loved, we did a show at Carmel that was based on the theme of the Itsy Bitsy Spider. I don't remember the theme or the year, to be honest. I want to say it was 2013, maybe. I can't remember.
Yeah, the
for
Tangled
sure.
Web.
Yeah, what a tangled web we weave.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites, I think, because it just had some really beautiful music in it. And even back in 2005, which was the first year we won, and I remember that year because it was the first year we won Grand Nationals. It was called Suspended Symbols, and we did some original music in that. So I was excited about that. And then back when I was writing for the Cavaliers, I would still encourage young designers to look at the early 2000 Cavalier shows. Some of those shows were still some of my favorite, and we did a lot of those with all original music, which people thought would never happen. Like if you look from 2001 through, let's see, I want to think 2004 was maybe the James Bond stuff. I can't remember, but 2001, 2, and 3, I think were mostly original. I can't remember for sure. I'm just too old and I have no memory. But a lot of those were original, and folks just, I mean, we just did so well because it was original music and people, it was just a new way of putting things together. And, now it's kind of people are getting back into doing the original music a little bit, but not very much. It's still a little bit scary to do that. But I would refer folks back to the early 2000s Cavalier shows. But as far as the Carmel show goes, that 2013 show was one of my favorites.
Was that like the spin cycle
Spin
and
Cycle was one of them.
Four
Yeah.
Four
Corners.
Four
Corners?
Corners. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, all great shows. I guess maybe I'm moving a little bit past the marching band with this question, but young composers, do you see something that is there a message maybe to young composers that you see that they make when trying to compose a piece and they're still developing? Is there something that you just kind of can point out that might help them out?
Yeah, I would say um, what I see right now of young composers is, and first of all, there are some wonderful young composers out there that are going to really change our activity for the better. So I'm excited for them. But I would encourage people that are starting in the composing world, again, to really study scores and look at if there's a piece you love, look at how that's done. And if you like writing for young band, for example, there's no one better to study than Mike Sweeney because he can make any group sound like they're amazing because of the
Mhm.
way he orchestrates. And if you want to look for more advanced pieces and you want to get into the orchestral world, there's just no one better than John Williams. And if you can find a John Williams film score, it's funny. I know some of the people that work out in LA that take the film soundtracks and they get them ready for the orchestras, before as they're getting ready to record for the movies. And they say it's really funny because for most film composers, even they have to go through and fix a lot of things and redo things. And when they get something from John, they just look at it and go, okay, and they just pass it right over because there's nothing to fix. I mean, he's literally that amazing. I swear he's from another planet. But you have to look at his scoring. And the other thing I would say for young composers, not everyone has to play all the time. You know, um, not everyone has to play all the time. I think a lot of people think that the more that's going on, the better. That's not always the case. And I think a lot of times conductors, whether they be university conductors or community band conductors or even young conductors, they're looking for variety for their students. They're looking to feature their woodwind section, their brass section, or a soloist here or there, or their percussion section. So write for variety in terms of orchestration, and I think you'll be more successful that way. But study scores. That's the best way to do it. That's how I learned studying scores.
Awesome. Well, we can't thank you enough for being on our podcast here today. We like to end each of our podcasts with shout outs. So these are, some attaboys or high fives that you'd like to give to anyone that you'd like to. So go for it. Any shout outs?
Well, my number one shout out is going to be to any teacher that is in a small school or in a school that has no resources and who's battling to keep music alive in that program. Those are the teachers we don't hear about. It's really easy if someone says, "Who are the best bands at Grand Nationals?" People will immediately tell you all these different groups, or who are some of the best concert bands in the country. They'll tell you all these groups. But I'm telling you what, and not that those teachers aren't doing tremendous work because they are. But the people that are the unsung heroes out there are the folks that are fighting for music to stay alive in those very, very small programs. And the other group of people I want to give shout outs to are all the middle school and junior high directors that start students, that bring a trumpet player in at the beginning and say, okay, let's see what note you get first. Let's
Hmm.
see if you get the G, if you get the low C, whatever it is. Those are the people. That's why we're all here. And I think sometimes we forget about that. And those are the people that I want to shout out the most. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to do that. I think that's very cool.
Love that.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, and we look forward to seeing all of your projects, final productions, throughout the summer and this coming BOA season.
Well, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate you giving all of us a platform to talk about what we do and to keep pushing for music education. And certainly appreciate you having me on, and thanks so much.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.